ensure this meeting runs smoothly for us in the room and those listening online. As we continue to meet in person, all committee members are required to be physically present here in the MetroPlan Orlando boardroom for purpose of achieving quorum. Staff will continue to stream our meetings online for public access. Now we will have a moment of silence and then the pledge led by Mayor Sladek. Please stand for a moment. Amen. Mayor Sladek. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we ask that everyone silence your phones and your smart devices. I do ask that all committee members wait to be recognized to speak and activate your microphones before speaking and turning them back off when you are complete, when you finish your comments. As a reminder, the microphone is turned on and off by pressing the blue button, the one with the little talking face icon on it, located on the screen in front of you. There are 2 public comment points in the meeting. Members of the public participating virtually who want to speak will use the raise hands feature on the Zoom screen. If attending by phone, you can hit *9 to request to be recognized. We also accept comments by mail and phone message before the meeting. The guidelines for the public comment are posted at metroplan.org/virtual meetings. We want this and all future meetings to be accessible to all. Participants may join by computer, tablet, or phone. If you need accommodations to participate in the future, please contact MetroPlan Orlando. And I'd like to also welcome our newest member, the Winter Park Mayor, Mayor DeCiccio. Welcome. Let's see. Okay, for our agenda review, Ms. Larson.
Good morning, Chairman and committee members. There are no changes to the printed agenda this morning. So we have just launched our 2024 Regional Transportation Survey, and we would like all of you to take it and to share it among your contacts and constituents. Some of you may remember that we do this public opinion market research every few years, and the data that we gather informs all of our planning, especially for the upcoming 2050 MTP. The survey will be open through Memorial Day weekend, and you will hear a presentation on the results at one of your meetings over the summer. You see here that we have a short link as well as the QR code on the screen for you to take the survey, so please help us spread the word. Also, I want to bring to your attention that we have a couple of flyers at your places. The save the date for our Vision Zero safety speaker series, and you'll also get some more information on that soon. And then also a flyer about the EV readiness workshops that are coming up. And now I'd like to turn it over to Mike Wilson for our safety moment.
Thank you, Sarah. Good morning, everyone. Giving you a 2 for this time around for the safety moment, trying to fit a number of things into the spring season here. So talking about distracted driving and seat belts. On distracted driving, we have over 20,000 crashes reported per year that involve some form of distraction. And when it comes to the type of distraction, there's a lot of uncertainty in that data. Officers are often not able to explicitly say this is the cause, but they can be confident in saying that it was some form of distraction. Over 600 serious injuries per year. That's 40% of our serious injuries involving distraction, and then nearly 130 fatal crashes per year. When I look at problems, I like to think about the consequences in really hard numerical terms, so that it's really, practical. So imagine we have a couple of drivers who are heading down the road at 40 miles per hour. And the first one has 2 seconds of reaction time, or takes 2 seconds of reaction time before hitting the brakes or something going on up ahead. Well, that driver's going to cover 112 feet. Let's say there was just 1/2 second extra perception and reaction time. Now that driver has gone 140 feet, nearly 30 additional feet down the road. Well, what are the consequences for that when we get down to that potential point of impact. Well, that first vehicle has slowed down to 0, while the one with the extra half second is still doing more than 20 miles per hour. So very big consequences for very short periods of time when it comes to distraction. Looking at seatbelts, unrestrained drivers and passengers, about 80 fatal crashes per year in our area. About more than half of our fatal crashes involve at least one unrestrained occupant. 10 years ago, it was only about 34%. And when I looked at that data in more detail, that has gone up basically 120. The unrestrained fatalities have gone up 120% on a per capita basis. So we're certainly backsliding when it comes to people using seatbelts. You need to understand that the seatbelt is part of the system, that the airbags alone cannot protect you. You need to be held in place for the airbags to work properly. So that concludes my safety moment for this morning. Be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
I'll ask all committee members to keep microphones muted until call. Please say here or present. Davitt? DeCiccio?
Present.
Dowless?
Present.
Erstner? Foraker?
Present.
Presley for Gardner?
Present.
Guthrie? Henson?
Present.
McCann? Ramos?
Present.
Sackett?
Present.
Slatic? Smith?
Present.
Mr. Chair, that concludes the roll call, and we do have a quorum physically present.
Thank you. I believe we also had a call in from Mayor McCann, who is traveling and asked for an excused absence. Do we have a motion to approve?
Second.
Second, first by Mayor Slavik, second by Mayor Henson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, please show that adopted. We will now hear public comments on action items. We ask that you provide your name and address for the record, and please hold public comments to 2 minutes or less. If any members of the public wish to comment and are joining us virtually, please use the raise hand function and you will be recognized, or dial *9 on your phone keypad. We'll send you a prompt and unmute your mic. Do we have anyone joining us virtually who would like to make a comment?
Mr. Chairman, we have no hands raised online.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public attending in person who wish to make a public comment?
I have not received any requests.
Thank you. And are there any written comments that have been submitted?
There were none.
Great. We have these magical voices from everywhere directing us. All right, now we have member partner updates. And so we will hear first from DOT Ms. Beckman. Welcome.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. I want to thank you for the opportunity to bring you this month's FDOT report. To start with, I'm going to give you 2 very quick updates that did not make it into the construction reports. Both are in Seminole County. County Road 46A and Reinhardt Road. The contractor is currently working on stabilization, clearing and grubbing, widening work on northbound and southbound Reinhardt, as well as widening work on eastbound and westbound 46A, as well as an installation of an MOT. The second one is I-4 and US 1790, 1792 interchange. The contractor is currently working on erosion control, maintenance, widening work on the westbound off and on ramps, stabilization barrier wall work, and restriping on eastbound I-4 off ramp. A few quick celebrations of completed projects we had. The intersection project at Cimarron and Curry Ford Road was completed in March. The Princeton Street project from Shell Road to John Young Parkway resurfacing project reached final acceptance at the end of March. The signal reconstruction project at State Route 438 Silver Star Road and Powers Drive concluded just at the beginning of April. I also have an extensive list of lane closures. I'm not going to bother you with those, but if you'd like to have any information, please see me afterwards. And finally, I do have 2 upcoming events that I wanted to bring your attention to. On Friday, May 17th, From 10 to 2, we will be having our Central Florida Inaugural Safety Summit. This is the culmination of all of our safety meetings earlier in the year with different MPOs and agencies and community partners. We will be celebrating Vision and Target Zero efforts, as well as the unveiling of our strategic safety plan. It is going to be at SeaWorld. Summit tickets are required to attend. There is a cost of $30. It covers your parking as well as your lunch for the day. If you're interested in that, please see me. I can get you the information and the link. The tickets are available through Eventbrite. And secondly, we have a Rollin' and Strollin' event Saturday, May 18th from 9:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. This is going to be at 800 Grand Street in Orlando. It is in conjunction with Bike Walk Central Florida. Our safety office is going to be going out and giving some pedestrian and cycling. It's an event to help with spreading awareness, as well as we do have some donated items as well. So that concludes my report. If you have any questions, I'm happy to hear them. Thank you.
All right, seeing none, we now go to links. Ms. Whitten, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. My report is pretty brief today. Our ridership is still around 60,000 average daily. That's about 75% of pre-COVID levels. We did implement our April service changes the week of April 22nd, and staff was out around directing passengers to the changes. One of the biggest ones was our new Route 311. That's an express route from Disney Springs to Orlando International Airport. So we were out there, and then we also increased on 4 Sunday routes, we went to 30-minute service, and we have seen a increase in ridership on those routes. So that just kind of shows us, if you put the service out, the ridership will come. And then we're also happy to announce we were joined by the Assistant Administrator for the Transportation Security Administration a few weeks ago. Links is governed by TSA, and we were awarded the Gold Award for our safety, security, and cybersecurity team. And we were one of the only transit agencies in Florida to receive that award. So we're happy to announce that. And that concludes my updates, unless there's any questions.
Congrats. And any questions? Sal?
Yes. Patricia, speaking of routes, the town of Oakland, I know we had a route for the links maybe 12, 14 years ago, and it stopped. And just wanted to find out, when can we get together to figure out how to bring it back
Yes.
now that the population has grown and a lot of development is happening on West Colonial?
We do. I did send some updates. I don't know if they went out, but we did look into the Oakland routes, and there is a neighbor link in Oakland, what we were talking about at the last meeting, that brings ridership to, it's the Route 105 that goes from State Road 50 all the way to Link Central Station. And there are some routes in our future transit plans for that area as population grows. They're a little bit further out, but I'll be happy to sit down anytime if you want to discuss it. Yeah. You're welcome.
No? All right, next we have Mr. Fine. Welcome, Mr. Fine.
Good morning, committee members. My name is Siazi Fine, and I'm with the Florida Turnpike Enterprise. So today, I just have one reminder for the MAC. So the Florida Turnpike Enterprise is holding a Public's Alternative Information meeting. Meetings for the PD&E study for widening the Turnpike main line from State Road 70 in St. Lucie County to State Road 60 in Osceola County. So why is this important? This route is regionally significant. I know a lot of folks here have driven, the Turnpike between South Florida and Central Florida. And we're looking at widening that part of the roadway. So the project actually is studying widening the Turnpike main line from 4 to 6 lanes. And there are numerous existing bridge structures being evaluated for widening and reconstruction. And additionally, improvements to the existing State Road 60 interchange at Yeehaw Junction are being proposed as part of the PD&E study. So yesterday we actually held the virtual public hearing session, but there are 2 in-person sessions coming up. They're a little out of your way, maybe, but if you're in the area, I would like for you to attend. One of the sessions is on May 7th, from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. And it is at Indian River State College in Fort Pierce, Florida. The other is in May 9th, from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. And that is at the Intergenerational Recreation Center in Vero Beach, Florida. So registration for both these sessions can be completed on the FloridaSturnpike.com. But with that being said, if there are any questions, I'll take them now.
Any questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Fine. We now have to go to our action items. First up is approval of the meeting minutes. Are there any changes or corrections? We have a motion to approve. Mayor Sladek, second Mayor Henson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, please show that adopted. Now we go to Organizational Public Participation Plan, which is tab 2. I believe that is Ms. Horn. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the MAC. It's good to see you. It's been too long. My name is Marianne Horn, and I am the Community Outreach Strategist here at Metro Plan Orlando. I'm here to talk to you today about 2 plans which have aligned goals but slightly separate missions. And in a few minutes, we're going to ask you to recommend approval on both of them, but let me tell you a little bit about them first. The 2024 Organizational Public Participation Plan is the plan that guides our entire effort in reaching out to the public, which is something that we must do in order to carry out our planning process in Central Florida. This gives us an overlay for all of our efforts and also addresses some of the strategies and tools that we use there. In addition to that, we have the 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, Public Outreach Plan. You've been hearing already about the MTP, the 2050 MTP, and you'll hear more about that today. But this plan is what actually kicks off our efforts to tell the public in Central Florida specifically about the MTP and get their participation in that long-range vision. So you see that they line up together, but it's two different things we're talking about. Both of them have gone through the prescribed comment period, which is 45 days. By the time the comment period closes on May 10th, we will have actually exceeded the 45 days. We have received public comments, which you should have in your agenda packets. I sorted them according to which ones I thought applied to the public participation plan and which ones applied to the MTP. There was some overlap there, but you get the idea. We were happy to see that people did comment on that process. We invited their comments in a number of ways, as you can see. Here's some of the graphic images that we use to try to get across to people, you know, what it was we needed from them on this, and they did respond. When we go in to update these plans, we have a process for that, which includes looking back at the previous plans. Now, our last organizational public participation plan came out in 2019, and then something happened, right? That changed a lot of what we did. We learned a lot during the worldwide pandemic. We learned a lot of new tools and ways to reach out to people with digital outreach. We're not giving those up. Those were things that we want to keep, and you'll see that reflected in the plans. Likewise, the 2045 MTP was going through approval during the year 2020, and so again, we had to pivot on that, and we're not giving up some of the things that we learned. So that was one big change that we made this year. We have a lot, you'll see a lot more in there about our digital outreach. We also get guidance periodically from the federal government on best practices. The one listed here on the screen, Promising Practices, came out last year. So they had some revised guidance on that. And we always look at other agencies' outreach plans, which are floating around out there, and see if there's anything that we can you know, borrow, adapt, whatever words you want to use for what we do. The overarching themes for both of these plans is that we plan to balance in-person and virtual engagement so that we can get the best out of both. We want to include strategies that reach our underserved communities. These are the people who don't often get to the table, and it is always our goal to bring them if we can, and we're looking for new ways to do that. We also want to expand our reach through strategic partnerships out in the community because, you know, right now we find that with the overload of information that everybody is facing out there, the very best way you can get through to people, if you have a message that is important, is to go through a trusted community partner. They may not be inclined to listen to us first, but if we come hand in hand with an organization that they know and trust, our message will get through a lot better and we'll get a lot more participation from them. So we're constantly building that stakeholder network. Now, the organizational plan really has two main goals. One is to encourage two-way communication with the community, because if we're just saying stuff out to them, we're not really communicating. We need to say stuff and we need to hear stuff back from them. That's the process we want to encourage. Also, we want to, as I said, consistently reach out and get the people who are not easily engaged. And that could be for a number of reasons. You know, both young and old people, we feel, you know, have some barriers, and we have certain strategies to get to them. Certain geographic areas have barriers, and we're figuring out ways to get over those. So a lot of things come into play there. We're always looking for new ways to accomplish that. When it comes to the MTP, we are looking for a more concentrated approach, we would say. Same principles, but we do this in a prescribed period of time, you know, a little over a year. So we want outreach that is very robust and inclusive, very accessible to everyone. We're going to include a very strong digital presence here because you can just touch more people out in the digital world. So we will be keeping you posted on our events. You'll be hearing more about this. And we'll be collecting public input. We'll be getting that hearing back piece and sharing that with decision makers. That's you. You are decision makers. And you'll be receiving reports from us showing what people are saying about transportation as we go about our work with the 2050. And then we want to have engagement with diverse group of stakeholders. And here's where we really need your help. In your folders, you have one of these sunny yellow forms. It stands right out. It's not an accident. Jumps out. There you go. Yes, you got it. And so this is something that I hope before you leave the room today, you can give a little bit of thought to. This is a form in which we are asking for you to help us reach people in the community that you don't think hear from us often enough. And we're trying to make this an easy lift for you. This may be the easiest thing that you'll be asked to do today. So, you know, you can do it. The first question is your name. And then we want to know what group you're a member of. That's the MAC. It's on there. And then we have a place where you can write down names of groups that we might engage with. And people that you know of, it can be a specific name of a group, or it could be a larger group, you know, of people that you think don't often hear from us. If you have a contact there, that's great. You don't have to produce that contact info. If you don't have it, just circle yes, and we'll come back around to you and see if we can't find out. And if you don't have a contact, also fine. Give us your idea and we'll see if we can pursue it on our own. But I'd love for you to fill this out before you leave the room. Thank you, Commissioner Ramos. And leave it at your place. We will collect them. If for some reason you have to leave before you finish it, you can't do that. You can always, you can email me. You can take a picture of this and send it back to me. Send it to Sarah. She'll get it to me. Any of that will work. We would just like to hear back from you on any ideas. We are building a new, as we do each time, a new list of stakeholders that we want to engage with, and we want your ideas. And so now I'm happy to take any questions. And after that, as I said, we'll be asking you to recommend approval on 2 individual action items for this.
Do we have any questions?
I just want to make a statement. Thank you very much. And yes, I'm filling this out, connected to our Town of Oakland Facebook, which reaches 4,900 people. So
Excellent.
thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, do we have a motion to recommend approval of the, this is the PPP, correct?
Second.
Yeah, Mayor Foraker, Commissioner Ramos, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, please show that adopted. And now we have the MTP. And back to Ms. Horn, of you went, so we can go ahead approval on that one too right now. Right?
Yes, we need
Okay.
to vote on.
Two separate, okay. And do we have any questions about the MTP? Do we have a motion to approve? Oh, we had a bunch. Who was jumped in first? Commissioner Ramos, we have a second. Commissioner Jordan, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, please show that adopted.
Thank you very
Thank
much, and
you.
you'll hear from us in the future.
All right, Era, you have a little bit of homework here. Next, we have the approval of fiscal year 25-26 Unified Planning Work Program. Mr. Trauger, welcome.
Good morning, MAC members. Today in your agenda packets and next up for action is our request for approval of our Unified Planning Work Program. This is, I believe, our 3rd presentation, and we're asking for your approval today. But again, UPWP, that's federal code for Metro Plan Orlando's operating budget, our internal operating budget. So again, I have made a few presentations to you earlier or throughout this year, a preview, last cycle, a draft of the document. And today we are requesting your approval of that final document, which includes the feedback and comments that we received from the Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit Administration, as well as our local Florida Department of Transportation district staff. And as you can see on the slide here, based on the schedule, due by May 15th and right in time for that, we'll be asking our board for approval at their May 8th meeting next week. So again, you are looking at a final budget, but what's the difference between what was presented and what you saw last month? And substantively, very little changes as it relates to the document. The major or the items that did change were some of our revenue totals based on our board's action at their last board meeting. They deobligated or unencumbered funds from our current year budget to roll those forward into next year's budget. So that is accounted for in there. And then based on those fund changes and based on the work activities and type, we moved around some of our federal and local funding sources. The federal planning funds come with some strings attached, where our local funds provide the utmost of flexibility. So we made some changes there to make sure that our eligible spending was consistent with federal law and to provide us some agility in the work that we do. Also added to the document is the District 5's planning activities. This was recently provided to us, so that's now included there in Appendix E. That is a required section of our UPWP, as well as those comments and our responses to the feedback that we received from our regulatory agencies. That's provided in Appendix H of the document. We are able to satisfy all of their comments and bring to you back a budget with very little change as it relates to our work, our focus, and the activities that we'll be doing over the next 2 years. As it relates to budget, as I presented last month, we're in a little bit of a higher revenue in current year. That's because of our SS4A planning grant that you've heard a lot about. We're administering that. Much of that work is going to be wrapped up by end of fiscal year, but some of those funds will be rolling forward into next fiscal as we wrap up that discretionary planning grant. You'll see in fiscal 25, it is higher than fiscal 26. Those are those unencumbered or deobligated funds that typically happen. Our first year of the budget's a little higher than the second year. Then the funds typically balance out over the next 24 months. Also, as part of our budget, consistent with federal guidance in the consolidated planning grant, we pass funds through directly to links with an interlocal agreement to support their strategic transit planning activities. There's a change on, as it relates to revenue totals on this slide as well, related to that deobligation. Links deobligated about $150,000. That's going to be rolling into next fiscal year. So they'll have those funds available come July to continue their planning efforts. Our pass-through funds to Links also includes a portion of our transportation disadvantage funds. Those funds are to support the Access Links or paratransit service, the administering kind of staffing of that effort, and not within the 7 million you see for the Surface Transportation Block Grant. That's not included in our UPWP, but we always call attention to that as it relates to pass-through funds consistent with our board's adopted TMA policy. $7 million a year goes to Links to support eligible capital expenses. That's found in our transportation improvement program, the infrastructure budget. But again, I think important to call attention to as it relates to our support for regional transit operations. Again, we are requesting your approval today. I'll field any questions you may have, but this is a voice vote. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any questions? All right, seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the fiscal year 2025-26 UPWP? Mayor Sladek, second, Mayor Henson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, please show that adopted. Thank you very much, Mr. Trauger. All right, we have presentation. Let's see, we have 4 informational presentations today. Please hold questions until the presentation ends if possible. We have our Vision Zero. So, Mr. Wilson, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning again. So update on Vision Zero, starting off with our public engagement efforts. As you can see here, the teams have been very busy, over 40 community events so far through the program with well over 1,000 interactions with the public, many public meetings, and you can see the whole laundry list here. And we'll get the presentation out to you because there's a lot of details. We don't need to go through everything on during the presentation. But we also have now a batch of social media templates that can go out to all the local governments for sharing on their social media accounts, addressing a number of key safety messages for the general public, as everything from helmet use to seatbelts to distraction, you name it. So all the important things that we see in our data that are contributing to crashes. As mentioned by Sarah earlier, we have our speaker series ongoing. You have a handout from that. Recently added was the Plan of Action for Walking and Cycling with Dan Burden. This is another Bike Walk Central Florida event in mid-June. Not on the handout that will be coming later in the summer is an event on speed management. We'll have people from around the state and around the country talking about their experience in reducing operating speeds on their roads. We held another task force meeting a couple weeks ago. The task force spent time talking about the policy framework. Again, we won't get into all the details here, but you can see what are the elements that will go into updating MetroPlan's policies, both within safety specifically and more broadly within our metropolitan planning process. Spent a good bit of time talking about the prioritization process, and had a lot of factors that were fairly complicated, and we had to sort of whittle down into something that was going to be more manageable. Again, both for the safety prioritization process, but also for, again, bringing that into the MTV process. The biggest challenge was on the safety benefits side. Definitely a focus on speed and ensuring that new projects have lower target speeds. What we kind of had to set aside was looking at the crash modification factors, which gets very analytical, way too many variables for a prioritization process. But we think we've got something that is going to be practical and still bring the safety issue into the forefront in our prioritization process. some supplemental analysis that's ongoing in the regional plan, looking at transit stops. We found that using the links boarding and lighting data, about half of transit stops, half of our boarding and lightings in the region are occurring on our high injury network. And so we're looking at where there are high use transit stops in conjunction with pedestrian and bicyclist crashes, particularly crashes involving them crossing the roadway. And we have that detailed data so that we can identify corridors where improved pedestrian crossing infrastructure would be useful. Then the next step would be getting into a more detailed analysis to identify specific locations and specific countermeasures for that. Team has also been looking at emergency response. We have in the crash report, we have the time that the crash occurred, as well as the time that the law enforcement or EMS arrived at the scene. And so from that, finding that, not surprisingly, response time does increase with the distance from a police or fire station, and only a slight increase at nighttime, and really very little difference for areas that are transportation disadvantaged. They're getting, comparable service from a emergency response standpoint. There were some areas that have longer response times, and we're exploring, delving deeper into what those differences are and how to resolve them. But the key thing is that most of the countermeasures that we're identifying are not likely to increase the response times, but they would hopefully be reducing our need for more calls for service. And so freeing up those emergency people for other responses, right? We're working on an action plan outline. So this will be, this is an outline that all the teams will use. So we'll have this outline at the regional level as well as down to county and municipal levels. And so we developed the basic outline, basic principles in it, and then the local teams can customize them based on their data and their local preferences and local targets. So next steps, we are talking internally about what we might submit for the next phase of Safe Streets for All grants. We have an August 29 deadline for that, for looking at supplemental planning and or demonstration projects. And we've been discussing that with the counties, both for the current grant and fleshing out those demonstration projects, but also what future projects they might want to submit, as well as in conjunction with MetroPlan, to continue this progress on testing things out, see what works, and laying the groundwork for future implementation. Project schedule, which you've seen a number of times now, we are honing in on that final plot point there. At your next meeting, you'll be seeing a probably 90-95% complete draft of the regional plan. And then for the June, July meetings, we will be going for adoption. So that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Do we have any questions? No?
Well, more of a comment, we've identified several things in our city, and it's all about funding.
Yep.
Quite honestly, let's face it, every one of us is under a constraint on funding. We know what we need to do. It's all about dollars and cents. And I don't know that how we're gonna get there if we don't get some federal money or get some help somehow.
Anyone else?
That's it.
All right. Thank you very much. And I think we have Miss Laurent coming up with the MTP status update. Welcome.
Morning. I'm Taylor Laurent, and I'll be providing an update on our 2050 MTP and the work that's been done since our last meeting. There was a status report included in your agenda packets, as well as another objective about goals and handouts, or goals and objectives as a handout in your agenda packets, and I'll reference those. You're welcome to follow along as I go through the content. So to begin with, for our background and existing conditions work, you heard from Mary Ann about our draft public participation plan that's available for review online. The existing conditions and area profile technical report has also been completed and is published on our website. And we have some other origin destination analysis ongoing. In terms of our goals and objectives and drivers of change, or those future trends which will impact our growth through 2050, I'm not going to steal my own thunder. I'll talk about those in a couple minutes. In terms of our technical work, we are continuing our coordination with FDOT on the Central Florida Regional Planning Model, as well as continuing our updates on the congestion management process and kicking off several of our planning emphasis areas, including health, housing, environmental evaluations, a couple of them, and our financial resources estimations. Then in terms of our needs assessments, sort of what we were hinting at earlier, the transit and roadway needs assessments, as well as safety through our Vision Zero plans, are ongoing. And our TISMO master plan needs assessment and active transportation needs assessments are both wrapping up right now. You'll hear from both of those project teams in a few moments. And then we had a technical workshop on April 11th, where we kind of deep dived several of our topics, including heard an update from the regional planning models team, talked about the existing conditions and area profile report, and spent a solid hour talking about goals and objectives and drivers of change, those future trends. So to give you a highlight of what the discussion was at that meeting, in terms of drivers of change, we're looking at those factors that will greatly influence the way that we plan transportation 25 years in the future. And the trends that we're going to be considering are listed up here on the slide in terms of breadth. I don't have an hour to go through all of these today. But I would suggest that if you're curious, taking a look at the video, which is available on our website, on our YouTube channel. Otherwise, we'll be having a report about these, kind of the deep dive version of these topics in the next month or so. Then where I'd really like to hear your feedback today are our goals and objectives. So these goals and objectives that were included in your agenda packets are started with the 2045 MTP goals and objectives. We compared those to federal and state guidance that have changed over the past 5 years, as well as looked at best practices from our neighboring and peer MPOs throughout the country to see how they were incorporating these changes in federal and state guidance and how we can customize those for our area. So that resulted in 5 goals, fairly similar to what we had in 2045. And I'll just go through the goal statements today. And if we have any questions, we can go back to these slides to look at the objectives in more detail. So our first goal being that of safety, to provide a safe and secure transportation system for all users. Reliability, providing a reliable transportation system across all modes for people and freight. Connectivity, enhancing lives through improved access to opportunities. And then community, enhancing the health and vitality of our region's communities and environment. And then prosperity, strengthening our region's economy. So as I went through those, these are very lofty goals that we're trying to achieve through 2050, continuing to support the growth of our region. You likely notice that they're interconnected, and that's done on purpose. So we know that as we make one change in one of these areas, there will be some butterfly effects that influence the results of the other goals. Let the picture be taken on the slide. There we go. So with the goals and objectives, I went through them quickly today, but we do have these available for your review, and you will be receiving a follow-up email with a survey to kind of provide any feedback if we don't have too much time for discussion today. But after we get the feedback from all of our advisory committees on these goals and objectives, we'll be finalizing those, refining them based on the feedback we receive, and then developing draft indicators. These indicators will be what we use to measure our progress towards achieving these goals and objectives. And those will be available for you to review in your June meeting. And from there, it'll be implementing them into the plan and developing strategies to accomplish our goals. So like I mentioned, you will be receiving that survey following this meeting. We do ask that you provide your responses by May 10th. So that would be not tomorrow, but next Friday. And That's all I have for you today. It's a lot going on, but does anyone have any questions or ideas about the goals and objectives?
Right, anyone? All right, thank you so much. Next we have active transportation plan with Ms. Telez, please. Welcome.
Great. Good morning, committee members. I'm Catherine Telez with Fair and Peers, and I'm here today to share with you our final active transportation plan, Ride and Stride 2050. So we started this project back in 2022, and the final plan is now available on the project website. So just wanted to share with you that throughout the course of the project, we solicited feedback from a number of committees, the board, the public. We also had a steering committee. And so throughout the presentation, I'll kind of highlight how all that feedback was used to inform the plan and the projects that are included in the plan. So for today's presentation, then I'm just going to highlight sort of how the report is structured and all of the various elements that are within it. So starting with the existing conditions and how we develop the network, how we prioritize projects, and then sort of all of the technical backup is within a very dense technical appendix. So at the beginning of the project, we realized that we needed a shared vocabulary of different bicycling and walking facility types. We realized from our first steering committee meeting and from the first CAC, TAC workshop that we were kind of calling the same thing by different names and then getting each other very confused. So we really started off the project with coming up with this shared vocabulary of what different facility types are throughout the region. And here on the screen, we're showing what we're calling different bicycling facilities. And then in the plan, we also have a separate graphic for walking facilities as well. So once we kind of had that shared understanding of what to call things, we mapped all of the existing and planned facilities within the region, and then we evaluated them from the perspective of how stressful or comfortable they might, those facilities are. So we looked at a bicyclist level of traffic stress and then a pedestrian level of comfort. So for both of these scores, a rating of 1 indicates that a facility is very comfortable, sort of suitable for all ages and abilities. Think sort of an off-street trail or a very nice wide sidewalk, maybe on a street that doesn't have a lot of vehicular traffic, all the way down to a level of traffic stress 4 for bicyclists. This might be, your 6-lane arterial that maybe has a bike lane, but really is just not all that comfortable. And then on the pedestrian side, we added a rating for a street that does not have a dedicated pedestrian facility. So once we kind of understood the different stress levels for people walking and biking, we wanted to understand, well, how accessible are things? Because we're really looking at this plan to have bicycling and walking serve as sort of transportation to get to a variety of places and not just for recreational trips. So we conducted an accessibility analysis, and this isn't to be confused with the ADA accessibility, but rather a combination of travel access and mobility. So for travel access, it's really the number of destinations a person can get to within a certain amount of time. And then mobility, so how far you can actually travel in a specific amount of time. So we looked at both walking and bicycling, and we combined these into an accessibility score. And we looked at destinations including schools, parks, transit stops, grocery stores, sort of those daily needs, and jobs. And we looked at that from sort of all of the residential uses within the region. And so we calculated then an accessibility score for each of these destinations, for each roadway in the region, to come up with a combined sort of accessibility analysis results. And then we overlaid that with the level of traffic stress and the pedestrian level of comfort after having assigned that accessibility score to each roadway. And so you can see here on this map that the turquoise roads are ones where it's very comfortable for walking and biking. And there's a lot of destinations. So we can kind of, okay, maybe there's some minor room for improvement on these, but these ones are pretty good. And then conversely, we have the orange roads here, and these are ones where it's very stressful to walk or bike, but there's a lot of things there. So this really helped us sort of flag where in the region we might want to look for improving walking and biking infrastructure. And then all of this was used to help us understand as we add new projects to the network, who benefits and what accessibility gains do we have. So I'll pivot and talk a little bit about how we developed the network. So we are looking at the potential for new trails, crossing enhancements, corridor improvements, looking at, maybe if we could just reduce the travel speed on this road, it would make it more comfortable for people to walk or bike, and then safety improvements. So host of considerations that went into the analysis, including number of vehicle travel lanes, travel speeds, looking at utility rights of way to see if there are any trail opportunities, and then safety data as well. We came up with an initial list of about 400 projects, shared that with the steering committee. Then we went to the CAC, TAC, had a joint workshop, got a lot of great feedback out of those conversations. Our initial list of about 400 projects was whittled down a little bit to remove some projects that were either too far along in the planning process to add some additional enhancements to them, or they're just projects that were already great. We didn't need to consider them further in this plan. Once we had that initial list of projects that the partner agencies had reviewed, we went out to the general public to get their feedback as well. We had over 440 comments from throughout the region, and that resulted in 14 new projects being added to the list. So in total, we have about 253 projects, and this includes new projects that had not been considered before. So we have a couple new trail segments, some trail crossing improvements, a couple new bike bridges or tunnels, and then some intersection improvements. And then we have what we call our enhancements to already planned projects. So there's about 105 of those. And these are opportunities where, as maybe part of a resurfacing project, there's an opportunity to narrow the travel lane, add a buffer to the bike lane, or as a construction of a, or roadway widening, maybe there's an opportunity to add a side path instead of just having, a 5-foot sidewalk and a 4-foot bike lane. So we came up with about 250 projects in total. And then here how it's all distributed throughout the region. And this includes projects that are already planned and on sort of all the various municipal plans, as well as the new projects that were identified through the course of this project. We then wanted to understand, okay, if we were to implement all these, what would that do for level of comfort, the level of traffic stress, as well as accessibility. So generally on the bicycling side, we're able to double the number of facilities that are rated at that level of traffic stress 1, and then significantly reduce the number of facilities that are the most stressful, so that rating of 3 or 4. And then similar results on the pedestrian side, so adding a significant number of pretty comfortable facilities for people walking throughout the region. And then looking at the accessibility gains, we're able to see that we're, from a biking perspective, we're significantly improving access to transit stops, as well as shopping. So we have lots of details in the report. And we recognize that these accessibility gains won't happen overnight, but as each project comes online, we'll get some incremental benefits there. We then did a detailed prioritization process, which really factors in safety, connectivity, transportation disadvantage to come up with our prioritized project list. And then also developed a toolbox of strategies. So how can we implement this? What are some best practices related to bicycling, pedestrian infrastructure? How can we really improve that access to transit, and then have safety and comfort kind of woven throughout all the projects? Developed a host of policy recommendations, so some additional information on ADA. There's a desire to have a regional active transportation count program, really understanding where people are walking and biking, what those numbers are, so we can track that over time. Some micromobility regulations, and then some guidance on bicycle facility selection. So all of this, as Taylor mentioned earlier, will be incorporated into the 2050 MTP. So happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? All right, thanks so much. And we have our last presentation about, from Tismo, Mr. Hill, welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members. Some new faces to me, and just as a review, Transportation Systems Management and Operations is the use of information communication technology to improve transportation reliability, mobility, and safety. So I gave a presentation to you at your last meeting, and at that time I mentioned that I'd come back to this month's meeting with a better flavor on some of the projects that have been recommended in this master plan. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do that, but you also have some assignments that are due by May 10th. The public participation plan, the MTP plan, MTP, excuse me. And I'm not gonna let them outdo me, so I'm gonna give you an assignment too that's gonna be due by May 10th. So whatever you have on your social calendar, you may wanna plan accordingly. But this master plan we've been working on it since spring of 2022. We have 9 agencies that are on our steering committee that helped us put this together. We've had 7 meetings. There's a summary of 9 technical reports, and I'm letting you know now, that's gonna be your assignment. That's gonna be due by May 10th. But this morning, I have Shana Eaton, who's with Kimberly Horn, project manager. And as mentioned, the active transportation plan and this master plan will both roll into our MTP. So we started with a vision. We want to leverage information communication technology again to improve or enhance our transportation system. And the goals are aligned with our 2040 MTP and are consistent with the 2050. So as I mentioned, it'll roll into that plan as well. We went through these steps to identify gaps between where we are now and where we want to be in 2050. That was the intent originally. But as we started working, it started to evolve. So we not only wanted to identify gaps, but we want to identify opportunities to build on the investments that we already have, but then also look at intersection improvements. So the gap, building on what's been invested, looks at a lot of technology, but a lot of the more, as I call low technology, is at intersections and how we can make those improvements, because that's where a lot of congestion and incidents occur. Again, we refer to our steering committee, documents that they've already produced, and interviews. And we've developed strategies based on what's in the industry as well as what the department has proposed. We developed a prioritized project list, and that was presented to you at the last meeting. 2 lists, one for the gap, one for what we call advanced ITS, and then the intersection improvements. And then we also talk about the path forward. And that is what regional strategies that have been recommended or that we should consider. So again, this I've already mentioned to you. We looked at gaps, how we can leverage what's already out there, and then intersection analysis. So the next few slides will just give you a sense of what we've recommended. In Seminole County, you see the corridors where we have identified the gaps, as well as where we can just enhance what's already in there. This is Osceola County. This is Orange County. And Orange County decided to do their project list a little different. They wanted to bundle their projects as a way to get them funded. So as an example, you see the gap list B, you'll see those dots along Interstate 4. That's where we have improvements at the interchange, and they want to bundle those projects together. Here's the city of Orlando. And then at the last meeting, I did introduce this slide, identifying the intersections that they want improvements on. And the way we went about this is we wanted to just look at 20 intersections. We divided those up amongst the jurisdictions based on the number of traffic signals that they maintain. And then the path forward, I mentioned the regional strategies. You know, what are those low-tech opportunities, such as agreements, that we can all look at and move forward on? In terms of considerations, the active transportation plan, the MTP is taking a corridor approach. So you have the active transportation master plan that has recommendations, but you have this master plan. And many of the recommendations are probably going to be in the same corridor. So what synergy can we take advantage of? We also want TISMO to support the Vision Zero Central Florida effort. And then the last one, artificial intelligence. I refer to that as the wild card because a lot of that's already been deployed, if you will, or that we all take advantage of. But that's only going to become more and more refined, and a little bit more expansive as we move forward. So uncertainty there. Now, your assignment, here are the documents that we have developed. My suggestion is that if you do want to review some of these documents, certainly start with the first one, that summary document, because that's going to give you just the understanding of everything that we've done. And then it's going to also include a more expanded list of the projects that are recommended. The documentation review, again, that goes through a lot of documents that we use to put this together. Existing conditions is just an overview of what the agencies want to include in this. The regional ITS architecture is just graphics and schematics. It's not much reading there. And then the rest of them are short reads, easy to consume. Mr. Chairman, again, these documents are available on our website for your review, and we ask for your comments by May the 10th. So with that, Mr.
So
Chairman.
by when?
May
May-
10th.
okay.
With all the other assignments you've got.
Yeah, I know. I was just getting some permission to add somebody. Anyone else? All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, we're wrapping up. Says there are some general information on tab 6 in your agenda packets. The next Metro Plan Orlando Governing Board meeting is May 8th at 9 a.m. Our next MAC meeting is June 6th at 9:30. Put it in your calendar. Now we have, do we have any committee members who would like to make any final comments? All right, seeing none. Public comments. Are there any members of the public wish to comment? Please use the raise hand function or dial *9 if you're on the phone, and we'll unmute your mic. Do we have any joining virtually?
Mr. Chairman, no hands raised online.
Thank you. And do we have any in public attending?
We have not received any requests.
Written?
None.
All right. With that, we are adjourned. Have a great day, everyone.